It is the Wells Report, the Who's Next project. In fact, Patrick Fallon is joining us. He wants to run for state representatives, wants to go to the State House of Texas. And, you know, it was very perplexing for us, Patrick, when we saw so many conservatives get sent down to the Texas State House only to be turned aside by Joe Strauss and all the strange machinations of the Texas State House. What are you going to do about all that?
Well, you know, the House battle for the Speaker's battle, I was, I think, the second largest contributor to the Ken Paxton for Speaker campaign. And Ken's a very good friend, and I would have loved to have seen him as Speaker. I think it would have been excellent. But, you know, when you were closing out the last segment, you had said, you know, we have a supermajority of, down in the Texas House, but it's a supermajority of Republicans, not a supermajority of conservatives, and there's a big difference.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Sorry. No, and I'm just very excited to, not only in my race, but, you know, there's 150 state reps. And there's a lot of open seats, and there's a lot of incumbents that are retiring, and there's some new districts like the one, District 106, District 88, District whatever the courts are going to call it. And you have this opportunity. I mean, Denton County is an incredibly conservative area, great salt-of-the-earth Americans, people that really built this country. And they get to send a voice down there. And do you want a voice that's going to reflect your values, or is it going to be somebody that only tells you the buzzwords because it's time for an election?
Well, you know, we've certainly had a lot of both, I suppose. That's the best way of saying it. Let me get to Kathy in Frisco. Kathy, welcome to the Wells Report. What's your question for Pat Fallon?
Hi, I actually don't really have a question.
Well, we sort of need a question. Okay, that's how we do this. You get a chance to ask a question if you'd like. Think of one. I'll come back to you here in just a couple of moments. Let me get to Brad in McKinney. Brad, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Wells Report.
Oh, thanks so much for taking my call. I've got a question for Pat there. If, you know, he makes it down to Austin, is he going to take a tougher stance on immigration than what's down there right now? And I'd like to hang up and listen to your comments.
All right. Thanks much.
Thank you. It's a great question. The illegal immigration is the number one thing of my 5 top priorities. Now, it's granted largely a federal issue, but there are things here we can do in Texas without the approval. You know, we don't have to beg hat in hand for the Obama administration to bless what we want to do here, or they can't sue us if we do the following things. Removing incentives for illegals to come to this country. We welcome immigrants, but come the right way. Number one, no in-state tuition for illegal immigrants. I would submit a bill that requires a valid Social Security number to be even considered for that. Number two, we have to ban sanctuary cities in the state. And then lastly, we need to require all governments, whether it's city, state, ISDs, county level, to use E-Verify when hiring. A lot of entities don't. A lot of school districts don't. Some cities don't. City of Frisco, of course, does use E-Verify. Because we could be using taxpayer dollars when we're screening applicants and then hiring illegals, and we wouldn't even know unless you have some mechanism in which to check.
Well, and this whole thing has been turned into this torsion bar of silly foolishness when it comes to people just trying to have an honest state and an honest way of doing the things that we have to do in the state of Texas. It has nothing to do with racism, has nothing to do with any of that. It's all about politics and pointless charges. And I'm reasonably sure that you're going to be the recipient of some of those. I know I have been. What are you going to do to handle those?
Yeah, well, you know, the funny thing is, JD, I've been talking to, I don't even know how many folks now. I mean, it's into the probably low thousands, 1,000, 2,000 people in the last 6 months. And not one of them has said to me that we don't want any new people coming into this country. Literally, not one of them has said they better look like me when they come into this country. They've all said simply do it the right way and follow our laws. If we're a nation of laws, then we have to respect them. And if you don't like the laws, there's a whole system and process to change them. And we've got to stop kicking the can down the road and take a stance on this stuff. I sympathize, and I get it. If I was born in Mexico and I didn't win this birth lottery that we all have as Americans, I'd want to come here too. But you have to do it in the right manner because it weakens the country when you don't. When we have a $172 billion state budget and almost 3/4 of that is going to health and human service and education, those are the two factors that illegal immigration is really straining because when you come here, you can't buy a house. So, I mean, education is predicated on ad valorem taxes. Well, you're not paying ad valorem taxes. You're living in an apartment complex that traditionally depreciates in value when traditionally, not lately, but traditionally, single-family homes appreciate. So how are we going to pay for that education? Eventually, it's going to break the back of the budget.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. What other, you mentioned you had 5 main issues. Pick another one of them and very quickly tell us about it.
Okay. Well, the other one would be taxes, spending, jobs, and economic growth. I kind of all wrote that into one, and it's not something that can be really quick, but I'll give you the brief version. Where Texas is succeeding while California and other large states like Illinois are failing because we are a right-to-work state. We don't have a state income tax. We have reasonable and predictable regulatory systems, and it's coupled with tort reform, which discourages and penalizes sometimes even frivolous lawsuits. And we have kind of artificially low debt as well, and all these things attract business, and that's a good thing. And we have done, I think, a good job with this, and we need to continue on because there are cries in some sectors for quote unquote more revenue, which means more taxes, which means more money out of your pocket. And the more money that you can keep in your pocket, the freer you are.
You're exactly right. Sure.
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead and finish.
And then the other kind of priorities would be Second Amendment rights. Again, I think this is something that we've done rather well. I can remember when I was in the Air Force here in the early 90s, I was up at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls. The CHL, the concealed hand license, that debate, and the national media in New York and California were talking about how the Texas was going to be the Wild West and people were going to shoot each other over a parking space.
Sure.
Well, that didn't happen. That sky in the fall. The liberals are always about. Barbara Boxer just said it last week that
8,100 people are going to die. Die!
If you don't agree with me and pass my legislation, thousands will die. You're going to commit a holocaustic crime.
That's right.
Is it really that? We can't have a spirited exchange of ideas anymore. I mean, the debate has been that debased to where if you don't agree with me, thousands will die.
That's right. Exactly right. If you don't do what I think you should do, people will die. Pat Fallon, so let me ask you this question. If people want to know more about you, where do they go and what do they do?
Well, they could go to fallonfortexas.com. That's our website, fallonfortexas.com. It's, as all websites are when you are dealing with a non-techie like myself, they're kind of a progress, in motion, but a work in motion. But also they can go to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/fallonfortexas.
All right, cool deal. So let me give you about a minute here to talk to the people of the 106th and put your best message out there to try to get their votes as we head toward the Texas primary coming up here.
All right, JD, cue the music. You ready?
All right. Well, no, we're gonna. Well, okay. Go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead. On your mark and say go.
I believe that America is the greatest country history's ever known, and I believe it's in peril. And it is going to take good, regular, God-fearing citizens to get involved in order to save it. I believe it's our duty and our obligation to serve. In Texas, if we do things the right way, will be the beacon that leads our nation out of darkness's looming approach. And I believe in the common sense, straightforward principles of conservatism. I believe that less government and lower taxes aids in the pursuit of happiness. And I believe, unlike Senator Boxer, that it's immeasurably more compassionate to promote the independence of the individual, not the dependency of the masses.
Awesome. Now say you're Patrick Fallon.
I am Patrick Fallon.
And say that this is the Who's Next Project.
This is the Who's Next Project.
On the Wells Report.
On the Wells Report.
JD will be back with the...
JD will be back with the...
With the Friday Flame Out next.
With the Friday Flame Out next.
All right, Patrick, thanks very much. Congratulations.